welcome back to Absolute Power from 1997, starting off at an art gallery where we see sketching happening as we meet Luther Whitney, played by Clint Eastwood. And Clint Eastwood speaks to his daughter here in real life, acting as a sketcher, asking how he's doing, and now goes to Red's bar and gives a cassette to Red here, played by Mark Margolis. He goes home with his groceries and dry cleaning, and now it's nighttime, having dinner with himself, flipping into his sketchbook and sees a specific sketch of a mansion which he now goes to the same night. And he already has a key to the place and goes in, and yes, he is a thief that robs luxury homes, or a thief in general, and Luther already knows where the alarm is and he turns it off. And walks upstairs and he's mouth watering by looking at all these paintings he's walking past, and takes out his flashlight and sees a picture of the couple who the house belongs to on the wall, and has made it inside the master bedroom where all the nice expensive stuff he can find to rob, and starts stealing all the cufflinks and watches and all the necklaces, and quickly turns around thinking he heard something. And now the grand finale, the drawer of money, and with the screeching music increasing, he heard a giggly woman and hides back inside the swiveling door closet, or the vault. And it's the same woman from the wall picture, and her name is Christy Sullivan, played by Melora Hardin, all drunk. In front of her is the President of the United States of America, Alan Richmond, played by Gene Hackman. Pretty sure I did a video on Gene Hackman recently, I don't remember. I think it was Enemy of the State, it's been too long. But yeah, he's a US president who wants to get laid with a married woman, and Luther is watching all this from the two-way mirror, where he can see it from his side. And Luther watching that necklace he could have stolen too, and he can't watch this and is about to be caught. And it continues and slowly starts to get rough, and Alan slapping her just ruined it. But it's the 1990s, what do you expect? So she slaps him back, and now he gets angry since the guy just wants to f***. And now he sets her to the bed and even gets his dick choked, and a punch to her face, and she stabs Alan on the arm. And Christy has been killed by the Secret Service, and President Alan Richmond screams for help and asks her if she's dead, and he's cooked. So Bill Burton, played by Scott Glenn, and Tim Collins, played by Dennis Haysbert, two Secret Service guys who will do the president's covering in this movie. And here comes the head, probably the head of the Secret Service, Gloria, played by Judy Davis. She sees that Christy's dead, and with Luther watching the whole thing, Gloria tells Bill to not call the police and to think real hard. And she comes up with a made-up story how Christy died, and President Alan Richmond says he doesn't know if he's had sex with her, and Bill's going to search her like he's a gynecologist. And the cleaning of the murder is done as Tim drops a knife Christy had used, but he forgot to pick it up since Christy's purse was the one thing he was thinking about, and Luther sees the knife which he's going to take. And the four go down as Luther cleans up and about to leave. And the two see someone's up there, and Luther escapes with the rope being pulled out and goes down and runs off to the forest. And the two grab their night vision goggles on with this nice music playing, and Luther runs out. And the music is just great here, I have to play it. Yeah, the music is awesome in this sequence. So Luther escapes as Tim catches the license plate number, and back at the Sullivan mansion as Gloria is freaking out, and the license number can't track down Luther, and Bill notices the swiveling door closet, or the vault, and see all the money and jewelry are gone, and they think he's just gonna run. So the next day, Luther's back at Red's to pick up a cassette, followed by the scene with the girl parking her car on the grassy patch and goes for a run. And her name is Kate Whitney, the daughter of Luther Whitney, played by Laura Linney. As Luther is hiding, comes out of the bush calling her, and she doesn't like him and wants her to move away from here with him, out of the country, and she knows he's back to stealing.
Oh, Christ. Father, what have you done?
And back at the Sullivan mansion as we see the detectives at the crime scene, and Seth Frank, played by Ed Harris. and everything has been wiped away for evidence pickup. Luther Whitney is a pro at that. And Mr. Walter Sullivan was in Barbados and has no idea that Christy, his wife, is dead yet, as Laura Simon mentions it here.
Tried to strangle her, then he went to the door to shoot her from behind.
He also inspected her vagina.
So next scene we see Luther Whitney in disguise to put all the jewelry and money in a safe. And puts in the cassette he got from Red, which is a recorded NFL football game, as he sips on beer. And back at forensics, we now meet the proprietor of the mansion and husband of Christy, Walter Sullivan, played by E.G. Marshall. And Sullivan's lawyer is back there as he answers Christy as his second wife and thought she would outlive him. And he'll answer Seth's questions, especially about the chair that was in the vault. And now at the White House in Washington, we see Walter Sullivan's lawyer, and now here comes
the president.
Sandy? Mr. President?
And Walter Sullivan is connected with President Alan Richmond, so he tried to shag his colleague's wife. Damn. And it was Walter who gave Alan Richmond the presidency in the first place. As a result, President Richmond will have a press conference for Walter Sullivan to thank him for all he's done for him, but also for Christie's death.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
And Richmond just wants a doctor already, but that will be too suspicious, and Gloria gives the update that the thief, Luther Whitney, was driving a car that doesn't belong to him when he escaped and still in search. And Gloria's still thinking about the knife that Luther took with him, which he's looking at right now. And back at Kate's, as she reads the newspaper about the Sullivan murder and the jewel thief, which she knows is none other than her dad. And Luther is getting some passports ready since he wants to leave the country and has to go. Alright, next scene, back at the station, we see Seth Frank again wanting to understand how Chrissy Sullivan really died with Laura here.
Just part of the job. I hate people who say, of course it's part of the... It is your fucking job.
Still more confusion, and detective comes in to alert Seth that Bill Burton from the Secret Service is here wanting to talk to him. And Bill just wants to know what the progress is on this Christy Sullivan death, and will speak to him later. So it looks like the electrician was sent by the Secret Service. Maybe. Looks like it so far. So later that day, Walter Sullivan is at home as he speaks to a professional sniper, Michael McCarthy, played by Richard Jenkins, since he wants a thief who broke into his place dead. And the next day, Seth has found out who the real thief could be and shows Luther Whitney's file to Laura, who is definitely the one. And Seth thinks he can't be the one who killed Christy since he's just a thief. And back at the same art gallery, as Luther is already watching the main floor, as he sees Seth Frank entering the place. And walks in Seth, and Luther knew he was behind him, and they go for lunch. And Luther really knows how to bull here, as Seth isn't buying any of this. And continues with the conversation someone else could do what Luther does, and he has to go get his pacemaker checked out.
Pacemaker, my ass.
So next scene, Luther is at Kate's apartment just looking around, but he just looks in her fridge that she doesn't have any good food. And with that same press conference happening with Alan Richmond, like he said, as Luther walks in here to this place, the hotel, sees it on TV and wants it to be turned off.
Turn it back on.
But you just got through
I
saying.
know, but turn it on.
And Luther sees all the fake mourning for Chrissy Sullivan, and Luther is definitely going to take down Alan Richmond this time. The next scene, Luther has made it to Washington as disguised as a White House visitor, and leaves his envelope on the table here for Gloria. And it's the picture of the knife he's got.
No, I just looked on the back. See?
I don't want money.
And she's freaking out, and if Seth Frank doesn't arrest Luther Whitney on time, Tim here will kill him. Seth Frank has arrived at Kate's law firm and tells him he doesn't know where her dad, Luther, is. And Kate has found out Luther's safe house as Seth brings her here and picks up the key from the plant pot. It looks like he already ran away, and Kate sees all Photoshop pictures where Luther included himself in times where he wasn't with Kate, and he just wants her to contact Luther already. And the next day she calls up Seth that she will meet up with Luther at Cafe Alonzo, out in the open, as Bill Burton overhears all this, and as he's tapped Seth Frank's phone. Now you know why that electrician came. And everyone is just thinking about this meeting and Luther listening to Kate's message from the answering machine. And some shooting practice and Seth giving out instructions to catch Luther Whitney. And now at the meeting at the Cafe Alonso, and Michael, the paid shooter by Walter Sullivan, is getting ready. And even Tim getting ready to shoot too without anyone knowing but the president. And Kate Whitney has made it to the cafe and these two are shining their bullets.
Oh, got to.
Pardon?
Oh, you sit, you eat, please.
And Luther is right there, but no one else can detect that. But Seth Frank spots him since he's already spoken to him, and Luther tells Kate he didn't kill Christie. And both snipers missed Luther Whitney. And Seth and the others see Kate was hiding under the table, and Luther escaped, leaving his disguise on the ground. And we do see that he's now disguised as a policeman inside the Cafe Alonso, escaping. And the two are back at Kate's apartment, and he wants to call her back if Luther shows up. But before Seth leaves, she offers him some water.
I live alone.
And Seth leaves, and she knew Luther was hiding here and asks him why he came to Cafe Alonso and was out of honesty, and tells how Christie really died by the Secret Service and President Richmond, and suspects Walter Sullivan was one of the shots to kill Luther at Cafe Alonso, and he thinks Seth won't believe him that President Alan Richmond is the real one at fault. And he was about to leave the country, and hands the doorman a present made to Gloria Russell the next day, and as she opens it, as Luther has made it, that's from President Alan Richmond, and it's a necklace and not just some ordinary one, as she now has entered the White House ballroom.
Christie Sullivan was the night she was killed.
And he suspects it's definitely Luther Whitney, since President Richmond looks impressed that he even got his handwriting right, especially his signature. And he thinks of killing Kate Whitney, and the two boys are on it. And Luther calling up Seth again one more time to make sure where Kate is, since he knows she's about to be killed. And Luther's driving around like crazy to get off to get to the Cliff Park from before, and Tim and Bill have already made it there, pushing down Kate Whitney. And Luther giving Tim a grin stare as they drive past each other, and Luther sees Crash and calls up an ambulance. And she lives, as Tim is now doing what Luther is known for, disguised as a doctor to kill her. And she wakes up as Luther rolls down Tim to another room, and Seth is back at the hospital brushing his teeth and gets scared by Luther here asking why Christie didn't go to Barbados with Walter, and now poses as the limo driver at the Sullivan mansion driving Walter Sullivan, and has now revealed himself that he was the one who robbed Sullivan's place, and tells him he put all the jewelry and money back. And now tells her how Christie really died and that Luther was there watching, and hard for Walter to digest this, and thinks to himself that it was Alan Richmond as Luther stops at the White House and hands him the knife to make sure that it was indeed President Alan Richmond.
I did love her, you know.
Meanwhile, Seth Frank and the other cops have found Bill Burton tapped their phone and has killed himself for it with a story note. And Walter Sullivan walking in wanting to see the president, and Gloria Russell has been arrested. And President Richmond opens the door for him, and the same night, a news headline is playing with Walter Sullivan having a private meeting with the president. And Luther walks in to check on Kate and sketches a little.
Like a son to me.
And President Alan Richmond has committed suicide, and lies about trying to stop Alan from killing himself. Maybe, you can tell by Luther's grin here. You know, with Alan pulling off the whole Walter's like a father to me crap, and vice versa. And Luther sees Seth there and walks out, and we end it here with sketching. And directed and produced by Clint Eastwood. Just like 90% of the movies he's done. And it's based off a novel by David Baldacci, and that is Absolute Power from 1997. Great movie, very underrated, and check it out. It's actually very good. And that is it for me. See you next time in Predator 2 from 1990. Like, comment, and subscribe. Share the video, and I'll speak to you next time, and thanks again for watching.